First Contact's price. The crystalline spires of the Valtherian High Command gleamed under the light of 3 moons, their perfect geometric patterns reflecting the species' dedication to order and logic. High Commander Zilix stood motionless, his iridescent scales shifting colors as he processed the scout fleet's report about the newly discovered civilization in Sector 847. Fascinating, he breathed, multifaceted eyes scanning the holographic display. They've barely achieved lunar colonization, yet they're attempting quantum research. Most illogical. The human settlement on Mars blinked as a red dot in the projection. Designated Colony Beta, it housed 3,000 settlers who had transformed the red planet's harsh surface into a budding terraform project. To Zilix, it represented everything wrong with this species called humanity. Their chaotic expansion, their reckless experimentation, their emotional decision-making. The humans display concerning patterns, Senior Analyst Vexra added, her crystalline appendages clicking rapidly across the data interface. They wage war among themselves, yet collaborate on space exploration. They destroy their environment, yet fight desperately to save it. They are inconsistent. Zilix's scales shifted to a deep purple of concern. In the Valtherian Empire's 10,000 years of guiding younger species, they had never encountered such contradictions. Their doctrine was simple. Species either followed logical progression or faced extinction. There was no middle ground. "Show me their response to first contact," he commanded. The hologram shifted to display the initial encounter. A Valtherian scout ship had deliberately revealed itself to a human space station, following standard protocol. The humans' reaction defied all predictive models. Instead of fear or aggression, they responded with excitement. They broadcast messages of peace while simultaneously activating defense systems, sent mathematical sequences while charging weapons, offered cultural exchanges while calculating targeting solutions. Impossible to predict, Vexra noted. Their behavioral patterns suggest a 78.3% chance of violent response, yet they attempt diplomacy. The discord between their actions and emotions is troubling. Zilix had seen enough. In his mind, the calculation was simple. Humanity's chaotic nature made them unsuitable for integration into the galactic community. Their unpredictability posed a threat to the careful balance maintained by the Empire. The solution, as always, was logical. Initiate Protocol Mercy, he commanded. Begin with their Mars colony. Let us see how they handle loss. The attack came during Mars Colony Beta's first harvest festival. Dr. Elena Santos stood in the hydroponics dome, admiring the rows of Earth vegetables thriving in Martian soil when the first alarm sounded. As chief xenobiologist, she had helped design the very systems that made this celebration possible. Warning: unknown energy signature detected, the AI announced calmly. Pattern matches no known phenomena. Elena rushed to the command center, her heart racing. The sight that greeted her stopped her cold. A massive Valtherian vessel had decloaked directly above the colony, its crystalline structure catching the pale Martian sunlight like a diamond blade. "They're broadcasting," her assistant, David Chen, reported, his fingers flying over the controls. It's being translated." The message that came through was precise, clinical, and terrifying. "Humanity has been judged unsuitable for advancement. You will be given mercy." Elena watched in horror as a wave of silvery energy descended from the ship. It wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense. It was something far worse. Where it touched, matter simply ceased. Not destroyed, not transformed, but edited out of reality with surgical precision. In her final moments, Elena did something that would puzzle the Valtherians for years to come. She smiled, not in fear or acceptance, but with a fierce understanding. Her last act was to press the quantum data transmitter she'd been secretly developing, a device that by all Valtherian logic shouldn't have worked at all. The signal that reached Earth contained more than just data. It carried the quantum signature of the Valtherian weapon, the emotional imprint of 3,000 dying humans, and most importantly, proof that humanity's theoretical physics had been right all along. Consciousness itself could affect quantum states. In the aftermath, the Valtherians expected Earth to react with fear, with chaos, with the emotional instability that had marked them for elimination. Instead, they encountered something far more dangerous: focused human fury. In a sealed chamber beneath the Himalayan mountains, General Sarah Chen reviewed Alina's final transmission. The quantum data streamed across her neural interface, telling a story that conventional sensors never could. She thought of her brother David, who had died smiling on Mars, and felt an emotion that transcended simple revenge. They thought they were being merciful, she whispered to the assembled world leaders. They thought they were being logical, but they just proved every crazy theory we've been working on. They showed us exactly how their technology works. And most importantly, she smiled then, a smile that would have sent shivers down Xylix's spine had he seen it. They showed us exactly how to break it. In his command spire, High Commander Xylix reviewed the success of Protocol Mercy's first phase. Everything had proceeded with perfect efficiency. The Mars colony had been eliminated with minimal disruption to the planetary system. All traces of human quantum experimentation had been erased. Yet something bothered him, a detail that defied logic. In the final moments, their sensors had detected an impossible energy spike, and in the vacuum of space where the colony had stood, for just a fraction of a second, there had been a pattern in the quantum foam, a pattern that looked disturbingly like a human smile. "Begin Phase 2, he commanded, pushing aside his unease. After all, what could a primitive species possibly do against the perfect logic of the Valtherian Empire? He was about to learn exactly how dangerous humanity could be when given both purpose and proof of concept. The war that followed would rewrite not just the rules of engagement, but the very laws of physics as the Valtherians understood them. And it all began with a smile. Project Prometheus. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in a facility that didn't exist on any official record, Dr. Maya Rivera stared at the impossible data streaming across her quantum displays. The equations didn't just bend the laws of physics, they broke them entirely. And that was exactly what humanity needed. "Play it again," she commanded, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. The holographic projection flickered to life, showing Elena Santos' final transmission from Mars. The quantum signature of the Valtherian weapon pulsed in patterns that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. "Consciousness affects quantum states," Maya muttered, running her hands through her graying hair. "Elena, you brilliant woman, you proved it in the end." The facility, codenamed Prometheus Cradle, had been Maya's home for the past 3 months since the Mars massacre. The world above thought humanity was preparing conventional defenses, new shields, better weapons, stronger ships. They couldn't have been more wrong. Commander James Chen, brother of General Sarah Chen, entered the lab. His presence was a reminder of their shared loss. His daughter had been among the Mars colonists. "Tell me you have something, Maya." She gestured to the central chamber where a modified meditation pod hummed with quantum energy. The Valtherians based their entire civilization on crystal computing. Perfect, logical, predictable. But Elena's final data showed us their weakness. Their weapons don't just destroy matter. They edit it out of reality by forcing quantum collapse through pure logic. "And that helps us how?" Maya smiled, the same fierce expression that had become common among survivors. "Because human consciousness doesn't follow logic. We dream, we imagine, we feel." Elena's data proved that human consciousness can affect quantum states in ways the Valtherians can't predict, because we don't think like their crystals. The first test subject entered the chamber, Dr. Kenzo Tanaka, a theoretical physicist who'd lost his wife on Mars, sat in the meditation pod. His face showed no fear, only determination. Their weapon tried to force quantum collapse through logic, Maya explained as she initiated the sequence. But what happens when we introduce human consciousness into the equation? When we let human minds dance in quantum space? The pod hummed louder. Kenzo's brainwaves appeared on the display, not in normal patterns, but in impossible geometries that matched the Valtherian weapon's signature. "Sir," a technician called out, "we're detecting quantum entanglement on a massive scale." In the pod, Kenzo opened his eyes. They glowed with an inner light that cast fractal patterns on the walls. When he spoke, his voice echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple points in space-time simultaneously. "I can see them," he whispered. "I can see the spaces between spaces. Their logic, it's so limited, so crystalline." He laughed, a sound that seemed to ripple through quantum fields. "They think in straight lines. We think in spirals and songs and dreams." Commander Chen watched in amazement as Kenzo's consciousness expanded through the quantum field, touching spaces that Valtherian sensors couldn't even detect. "You've turned human consciousness into a weapon." Maya shook her head. "Not a weapon. A key. The Valtherians use technology to force reality to behave. We're learning to dance with it instead." The program accelerated after that. They called the volunteers quantum dancers, humans trained to extend their consciousness into quantum space. Each brought their own unique perspective. Musicians who could feel quantum harmonies, artists who could paint with probability, mathematicians who could calculate in impossible dimensions. But it wasn't without cost. The first few volunteers came back changed. Some spoke in equations, others couldn't stop seeing quantum possibilities in every moment. The human mind wasn't meant to perceive reality on such a fundamental level. Then Lisa Chen, Commander Chen's surviving daughter, made the breakthrough. A gifted pianist, she approached quantum space like a musical composition. "You're all trying too hard," she explained during her first session. "Stop trying to understand it. Just feel it. Like music, you don't need to understand every harmonic to know it's beautiful." Her quantum dance was unlike anything they'd seen. Where others fought to impose order on quantum chaos, she flowed with it, her consciousness moving through probability spaces like notes in a symphony. The Valtherians' first warning came when their forward bases began reporting anomalies. Crystal computers showed impossible calculations. Quantum communications contained echoes of human laughter. Reality itself seemed to ripple with patterns that their logical minds couldn't process. In orbit around Jupiter, a Valtherian scout fleet detected something that should have been impossible: a human consciousness expanding through quantum space, dancing between probabilities. Before they could react, reality shifted. When space reasserted itself, their crystal ships had been transformed into abstract sculptures, their perfect geometry twisted into shapes that told stories of human dreams. High Commander Zilix received the reports with growing concern. His scales shifted through patterns that hadn't been seen in Valtherian society for millennia. Uncertainty, fear, doubt. "They've weaponized chaos itself," he realized, watching another patrol disappear into probability storms of human making. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't follow the laws of physics? In the Prometheus cradle, Maya watched Lisa Chen conduct her latest quantum symphony. The young woman's consciousness spread through the solar system, touching Valtherian sensors with memories of Mars, showing them the cost of their mercy. "Phase 1 is complete," Maya reported to General Chen. "The quantum dancers are ready." Sarah Chen nodded, thinking of her lost family and the price of this new power. "Then it's time for Phase 2. Let's show the Valtherians what happens when humanity decides to rewrite the rules of reality." As humanity prepared its response, the Valtherian Empire was about to learn a harsh truth. In trying to impose order on chaos, they had awakened something far more dangerous: human creativity unleashed across quantum dimensions. The dance was about to begin. The Ghost Protocol, Operation Starfall, began not with a bang, but with a whisper. Across Valtherian space, reality began to glitch. Crystal computers that had calculated perfectly for millennia suddenly produced poetry instead of predictions. Security systems detected phantom humans who walked through walls, leaving behind nothing but the lingering scent of Earth coffee. Aboard the quantum dancer flagship Dreamweaver, Lisa Chen sat in her modified consciousness pod, her mind extending through probability space like fingers across piano keys. Around her, 50 other dancers synchronized their quantum frequencies, creating what they called the Ghost Symphony. Target acquired, Lisa announced, her voice harmonizing with quantum fluctuations. The Valtherian Central Archive had Nexus 7. Beginning infiltration. The Dreamweaver itself was humanity's greatest achievement, a ship that didn't so much fly through space as dream through it. Conventional sensors couldn't detect it because, technically, it existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, held together by the collective consciousness of its crew. Inside Nexus 7, High Archivist Kel Then was experiencing what humans would call a nervous breakdown. The crystal archives, repositories of perfect Valtherian knowledge, were changing. Historical records remained intact, but now contained footnotes that shouldn't exist, emotional contexts, alternative perspectives, and worst of all, jokes. Impossible, he chittered, his crystalline appendages vibrating with distress. The security is perfect. The logic is perfect. How are they doing this? The answer came in the form of music. Through quantum speakers that didn't exist a moment ago, an ancient human composition began to play. Mozart's Symphony No. 40 in G minor. As the notes filled the archive, the crystal displays began to dance, their perfect geometric patterns swirling into new forms that somehow made more sense than their original configurations. We thought you might appreciate some culture. Lisa's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Your archives were so orderly. We added some creativity. Across Valtherian space, similar scenes played out. The Ghost Protocol wasn't about destruction, it was about transformation. Quantum dancers slipped through the spaces between spaces, turning the Empire's perfect order into what they called organized chaos. On the Valtherian throne world, High Commander Zulix faced his greatest crisis. The quantum field that had once been as predictable as crystal growth now rippled with human emotions. His scientists reported the impossible. Human consciousness was not just affecting quantum states, it was rewriting them. They're not fighting us, his lead scientist explained, scales shifting in patterns of deep disturbance. They're teaching us. The humans had discovered something the Valtherians had forgotten in their pursuit of perfect logic, that consciousness itself was a force that could shape reality. Each quantum dance was a lesson in possibility, showing how emotion and logic could coexist, how chaos and order could create something greater than either alone. But the true masterstroke came during the Empire's millennial celebration. As billions of Valtherians gathered to celebrate their perfect society, Lisa Chen and her fellow dancers prepared their greatest performance. Ready for the final? She asked her crew. Their minds joined in quantum harmony, and reality held its breath. In an instant, every crystal display in the Empire shifted. Instead of showing the planned celebration, they displayed scenes from human history. Not the wars or conflicts the Valtherians had used to judge humanity, but moments of triumph over adversity. The first steps on the moon. Children playing in the Mars colony before its destruction. Scientists celebrating breakthroughs. Artists creating beauty from chaos. And beneath it all, quantum equations danced, showing the mathematics of human emotion, the logic behind human illogic. The Valtherians watched, their crystalline minds struggling to process this new paradigm, where order and chaos weren't opponents but partners in a cosmic dance. Aboard the Dreamweaver, Lisa played her quantum symphony. Each note carried memories of Mars. Each harmony showed paths not taken. Each rhythm demonstrated how humanity's chaotic nature had led not to destruction but to transcendence. Their perfect logic has become their prison, she explained to her fellow dancers. We're not here to break it, but to show them the beauty of imperfection. The effect on Valtherian society was profound. Young crystals began growing in irregular patterns, creating shapes that were both logical and artistic. Empire scientists started exploring quantum consciousness, discovering that their own crystalline minds could also dance with reality, though in different ways than humans. High Commander Zilix watched his perfect empire transform and realized the true magnitude of his mistake. In trying to impose mercy through logic, he had awakened something far more powerful: humanity's ability to find harmony in discord, to create order from chaos, to dance with the very fabric of reality. As the Ghost Protocol reached its crescendo, Lisa Chen sent one final message throughout the quantum field, reaching every crystalline mind in the Empire. You offered us mercy through destruction. We offer you growth through transformation. The dance floor is open. Shall we learn from each other? In the quantum spaces between spaces, human consciousness continued to dance, showing the Valtherians that sometimes the most logical choice was to embrace illogic. The war that had begun with an attempt to impose order was ending with a celebration of infinite possibility. And in the newly transformed archives of Nexus 7, a crystal began to grow in an impossible pattern, a perfect blend of Valtherian geometry and human chaos, a symbol of what could be achieved when logic learned to dance with emotion. Empire's tremors. The Valtherian Empire had stood unchanged for 10,000 years, its crystalline society as structured as the geometric patterns they revered. But now, cracks were appearing, not in their structures, but in their certainties. In the Imperial Academy of Perfect Logic, young Valtherian scholar Valix stared at the quantum equation floating before him. Unlike the pristine mathematical patterns he'd studied all his life, this one seemed alive, almost musical. It was a human equation, discovered in the data streams the quantum dancers had woven through their networks. Fascinating, isn't it? His mentor, Ancient One Crystal, moved closer, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. They solve problems not by following logical paths, but by feeling their way through them. Valix's own crystal structure vibrated with forbidden excitement. But how can they achieve reliable results through such chaos? Perhaps, Crystal suggested, her tone carrying harmonics of newfound uncertainty, chaos itself has a deeper logic we never understood. Across the Empire, similar scenes played out. The Ghost Protocol hadn't just challenged their defenses, it had infected their very way of thinking. Young Valtherians began experimenting with irregular crystal growth patterns, creating structures that were both mathematically sound and artistically expressive. Some even attempted to reproduce human music through quantum fluctuations. In the High Command's crisis chamber, Zilix faced mounting evidence of his civilization's transformation. Reports flooded in, military formations adopting unpredictable yet effective patterns, scientists incorporating emotional variables into their calculations, even crystal architects designing spaces that encourage social interaction rather than perfect efficiency. The contamination spreads, his advisor warned, using their traditional term for cultural change. But for the first time in his long life, Zilix wondered if contamination was the right word. A hologram activated, showing the latest quantum dance performance. Lisa Chen's consciousness painted impossible patterns across their sensors, each movement demonstrating how chaos and order could coexist. The younger Valtherians watched in fascination, their crystalline forms resonating with frequencies they'd never allowed themselves to explore. They're not destroying us, Zilix realized. They're evolving us. But not everyone welcomed this change. The purist faction, led by Ancient One Vexthor, saw humanity's influence as an existential threat. In their fortress monastery on the Empire's outer rim, they plotted to preserve their perfect logic. We must excise this infection, Vexthor declared to his followers. Initiate the purification protocol. Deep in quantum space, Lisa Chen felt the shift. The purists weren't just planning a conventional attack. They were attempting to crystallize reality itself, to force the entire sector into a state of perfect, unchanging logic. Aboard the Dreamweaver, she called an emergency meeting of the quantum dancers. They're trying to freeze probability itself, she explained, her consciousness extending through the ship's quantum field. If they succeed, they'll lock both our civilizations into a single, unchanging pattern. Commander Chen's hologram flickered in the ship's consciousness chamber. Can they do it? Their logic is perfect, Lisa admitted. But that's their weakness. They can't see that perfection itself is a form of entropy, a dead end in the universe's dance. The purists' attack began with crystal ships arranging themselves in perfect geometric patterns, their combined quantum fields attempting to impose absolute order on spacetime. Reality began to crystallize around them, possibilities collapsing into certainties. But humanity had learned to dance with uncertainty. As the crystal ships advanced, the quantum dancers launched their counteroffensive. Led by Lisa, they didn't fight the crystallization. They moved with it, through it, adding their own chaotic harmonies to its perfect patterns. Show them, Lisa commanded her fellow dancers. Show them what happens when order and chaos work together. The battle that followed defied conventional description. In quantum space, human consciousness flowed like water around crystal formations, finding the harmony in discord, the patterns in randomness. The purists' perfect formations began to resonate with new frequencies, their rigid structures absorbing and reflecting the quantum dance. Young Valtherian crystals across the empire felt the battle. Many, including Valix, found themselves unconsciously adding their own harmonies to the human quantum dance, their inherited knowledge of perfect order blending with newfound appreciation for beautiful chaos. In the crisis chamber, Xylix watched the transformation of his civilization reach its tipping point. The purists' attempt to force absolute order had instead demonstrated its impossibility. Even their perfect crystal ships now sparked with unpredictable quantum harmonies, their crews experiencing something unprecedented in Valtherian history: spontaneous emotional responses. "High Commander," his youngest advisor said, her crystal form shimmering with newfound possibilities, "perhaps it's time we reconsidered our definition of perfection." As the purists' fleet dissolved into a spectacular display of quantum harmonics, their perfect patterns transforming into something new and beautiful, Xylix made a decision that would reshape the Empire forever. He opened a quantum channel to the Dreamweaver. "We once offered you mercy through destruction," he transmitted, his crystalline form resonating with new frequencies. "You have shown us growth through transformation. Perhaps it's time we learn to dance together." Lisa Chen's response came not in words but in music, a quantum symphony that carried the emotions of Mars, the logic of mathematics, and the promise of something greater than either civilization had imagined alone. The Empire's tremors had become a transformation, and the dance was far from over. Symphony of Vengeance. 1 year after the Purists' defeat, the Mars Memorial Quantum Observatory hung in space where Colony Beta once stood. Its structure defied conventional architecture. Part crystal, part probability field, maintained by the combined consciousness of human quantum dancers and Valtherian harmonists. Lisa Chen stood at its heart, her consciousness extended through quantum space, conducting a very special performance. Beside her, Valix's crystalline form resonated in harmony with her quantum frequencies. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, a fusion of human chaos and Valtherian order that would ensure neither civilization could ever again mistake difference for weakness. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice rippling through multiple probability states. Valix's crystal structure shimmered with what humans would recognize as excitement. "To use your phrase, let's dance." The memorial was more than a monument. It was a quantum amplifier designed to broadcast the true history of both species across space and time. Not just the facts, but the emotions, the understanding, the growth that had come from their conflict and eventual cooperation. "Signal reaching quantum coherence," announced Dr. Maya Rivera, now sporting silver hair from years of quantum exposure. "Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The performance began. Lisa's consciousness soared through quantum space, carrying the memories of Mars, not just its destruction, but its hopes, its dreams, its promise. Valix's crystalline harmonies added structure to her chaos, turning raw emotion into universal mathematics. Across the galaxy, both species felt the transmission. The quantum broadcast carried more than information. It carried understanding. Valtherians experienced human emotion not as disorder, but as a new form of complexity. Humans felt Valtherian logic not as cold calculation, but as another kind of music. In the High Command Spire, Xylix watched reality itself transform. The perfect crystal walls now pulsed with subtle patterns, not the chaos he once feared, but a perfect blend of order and unpredictability. His own crystalline form had evolved, capable now of resonating with emotions while maintaining logical clarity. We sought to prevent their pain, he mused to his advisors, yet in doing so we caused it. And in return, they taught us that pain, like chaos, has its own purpose in the universe's dance. The quantum broadcast reached its crescendo. Through the memorial's heart, Lisa and Valix began the final movement, a demonstration of what their combined civilizations could achieve. Reality rippled around Mars, probability fields shifting as human consciousness and Valtherian crystals worked in perfect harmony. Where the colony once stood, something new emerged. Not a restoration. Both species had grown beyond such simple solutions. Instead, they created a quantum garden, where crystal structures grew in patterns that defied logic, while following perfect mathematical rules, where human emotions shape reality in ways that could be scientifically quantified. The garden will grow, Lisa explained to the watching galaxy, evolving with both our species. Each crystal formation tells a story. Each quantum fluctuation carries a lesson. This is our answer to extinction, endless transformation. In the years that followed, the quantum garden became a symbol of something greater than vengeance or mercy. Young Valtherians came to learn emotion, while human students studied crystalline logic. New hybrid technologies emerged, blending quantum consciousness with crystal computing to create something neither species could have achieved alone. The tragedy of Mars had been transformed into a testament to growth, a promise that difference need not lead to destruction. The Valtherian Empire, once rigid in its perfection, became known as the harmonic confluence, where order and chaos danced in endless possibility. And in quiet moments, when the quantum fields hummed with both mathematical precision and emotional resonance, Lisa would remember her fellow colonists from Mars. Their sacrifice had not brought the extinction of either species, but rather the transcendence of both. They offered us mercy, she would tell her students, both human and Valtherian, and we showed them magic. They taught us logic, and we taught them dreams. Together, we learned the greatest lesson of all, that the universe's true nature lies not in perfect order or pure chaos, but in the infinite dance between them. The quantum garden continues to grow, its crystals singing with human emotions, its chaos following mathematical laws. It stands as a monument not to victory or defeat, but to the moment when two species learn that the most powerful force in the universe is not the ability to destroy or control, but the courage to transform and grow. In the end, humanity's vengeance was not destruction but creation, not conquest but collaboration. They had rewritten not just the laws of physics, but the very definition of civilization itself. And somewhere in quantum space, in the harmonies between order and chaos, the legacy of Mars lives on, not as a tragedy, but as the first note in an endless symphony of possibility.